Welcome to the Credit Concept, the Concept of Credit podcast. I am your host, credit coach Nicole Scott. This podcast talks about the credit concept behind what we need to do in order to have the best credit score possible for our situation so we can leverage our personal credit. Okay. Now, if you have not by now, make sure that you have followed me on Instagram and YouTube at Credit Coach Nicole Scott, and you've joined our podcast on all the podcast broadcasting stations where you can follow the Credit Concept podcast. Now, let's get into it. Today's podcast, we're going to be talking about history, credit history. What is the average age that is listed on your credit report, how we can improve that number, and how we can improve our overall credit profile. Now, age is an important factor when we are talking about our personal credit because it accounts for about 15% of what our credit score is going to be. Now, keep in mind there are a few ways that we can actually add credit history to our credit profile, and we'll get into that later on in this podcast. Now, if you have additional information or if you would like for us to talk about certain topics, feel free to shoot us an email, support@creditcoachpros.com. You can also head to the description and we will leave a bunch of additional information for you to sort through. So without further ado, let's go ahead and let's dive into it. So with history is super important because, like I said, it is 15% of your overall credit score. And you want to be able, the goal with this is to have an average history of 5 years or more. And a lot of people will get history from older installment loans, like student loans. And when they look at their credit history, they'll say, oh, wow, I've got 8 years of credit history. Well, that's probably from your student loans because those were the first accounts that were listed on your credit report as a trade line, because every account that you have that's in your name that you are responsible for paying, like a student loan or a car payment or a credit card that's in your name, those are considered primary trade lines. And those trade lines are going to be your lifeline when it comes to credit. Now, understand the concept behind the history. They want to see, do you have a good payment history, right? Is your payment history reported as on time, or are you going to be a problem? Now, if you have not paid all of your bills on time in the past, some creditors will probably tell you, no, it's not going to work with us because we need to deal with consumers who have a stronger payment history or a stronger credit profile, right? Well, how do we do that? Well, you got to build your credit profile to be strong. We talk about some of the concepts behind it. If you haven't watched all of our YouTube, videos, you need to watch those and listen to all of the podcasts because we talk about some of the major key points when it comes down to structuring your credit. And history is definitely the top three because of the fact that it is 15% of your credit score. Now, how do we add history to our credit profile? How can we add age to our credit profile? Well, there's a few ways that we can do that. Number one is adding trade lines to your credit profile, right? You can add authorized user trade lines to your credit profile. If you have family or friends that have credit cards that are in their name that have 100% on-time payment history and have a fairly low credit utilization, I would say their utilization is below 15%. Because again, the goal with credit utilization is to keep your utilization under 10%. But if someone's got a really great credit card, it's got a high limit, it's got a perfect history, we could take up to 15%. We just don't want to be added as an authorized user to anyone's credit card that has even one late payment or has a big balance due. Now, the balance is simply going to be determined based on what the credit limit is. So if they have a $20,000 limit, they might have, $2,000 balance. That's okay. If their credit limit is $2,000 and they have a $2,000 balance due, that's not going to help us. That's just going to show that we owe debt. So you do want to be careful. You can purchase trade lines. We have a large inventory of trade lines that you can purchase to help increase your overall age and to add those higher limits to your credit profile, which can in return, help you get approved for higher limits and help your credit utilization be brought down because you're adding more available credit to your credit profile. Now, if you are interested in purchasing trade lines to help enhance your credit profile, use the link below and you can view a list of our available trade lines. We will talk more about trade lines in a different podcast. Today's podcast is primarily based on payment age and your history and why it is so important. So with the history, we want to make sure that all of our history is on time, of course. And if we don't have on time history, we want to make sure that you watch podcast before this one where we talk about the importance of payments, okay? And making sure that you're paying your bills on time and how to get those corrected if for some reason you did make a payment late. But when it comes to age and credit history, you will need a strong history in order to show creditors that you are credible, that you have the ability to manage your credit on time, you have the ability to be a responsible consumer. And that's what it's all about. Out of all of these accounts that you have listed on your credit, how long have they been open for? Have you paid your bills on time? And this is why it's so important for people to understand the concept and understand that you do not want to close old accounts. So if you have, say, for example, like an old Care credit account, but you don't use it, go use it. Just keep it open. Even if you have a very low balance, you want to keep those trade lines that have been open for a long time, that you have a perfect payment history with. You want to keep those open because they are going to help your history. If you were to close an account that has history, it would affect your credit score. So even some of those credit cards where you're like, I hate these credit cards, I never want to use them again, I want to cut them up and close them, I hate them. Okay, great. Hate them all you want, but understand the concept behind why we want to keep them open. The reason why we want to keep these accounts open and have them continue to report as a positive trade line on our credit report, a positive primary trade line at that, is because they have history tied to them, right? They have all of this great history that's showing, hey, I had this account, I paid all my bills on time, this was the highest amount that I ever had reported on my credit account. And, some information that's very important to show that you are, in fact, a credible consumer and that you would be a good consumer to extend credit to based on your history, right? So that's why it's really important to keep these aged accounts that you have that you say, I hate them, I never want to use them, I want to cut them up. Don't close them. You can cut them up all you want, but keep in mind that you do need to keep some activity on the account every so many months, like 6 months or so, or else they might close the account, the creditor might close the account due to inactivity, which I have seen happen, right? And you also want to be careful if you are disputing with an open account because they could potentially close your account, which is going to lose history. If you dispute an open account, maybe you have a late payment that you're trying to request a goodwill adjustment. Well, be careful because if you dispute it with the credit bureau and you say the wrong thing, they might just simply think that you're disputing the account, not even necessarily read the letter, but think you're disputing the account, and they will close your account and now you lose all of this good history. It's not like you lose it, it doesn't go away, but it's just not open anymore and it's not actively reporting. So we want to have as many open accounts that have history that are reporting paid as agreed as possible. And if that means us adding some trade lines that have some higher history to help us, then that's what we need to do. And a lot of people don't realize that this is what people do. This is what people have been doing for years in order to get a high credit score. And it's just simply piggybacking off those people that understand the concept of credit, understand how important paying a trade line on time is, because not only is this trade line going to help your credit, but you can add authorized users to credit card accounts that could benefit from your credit history and your credit limits, including your children. You can set your kids up so when your kids turn 18, you can add them to your credit card. And next thing you know, your credit card account is now reporting onto their credit report. Now, the banks will issue a credit card in their name, but they're going to send it to your address. And all you have to do is activate it, and then you can cut it up. They don't have to have access to your account. They don't have access to your account. The only access they have is that card. And if you cut it up after you activate it, then no one will have access. It's not like they can call the credit card company and say, hey, can you send me a new card? No, it's not that type of situation. This has been going on for a long time. This is one of the top secrets that people use to boost their credit score, is to piggyback off those people that do understand the concept of credit. Because a lot of us were not taught the concept of credit, right? We don't understand how the concept of credit really works. And this podcast shows you exactly that. And I talk about, some of the basics of keeping it simple and just understanding the basic concepts about credit. So if you found value in today's podcast, make sure that you have subscribed to all of our social media platforms, Credit Coach Nicole Scott on YouTube and Instagram. And check out the links in our description if you are interested in adding trade lines to your credit profile to help increase your overall age. Because when you start adding and building credit to your credit profile, it brings your average age down. So a lot of times we need something to help balance that out, because a lot of us, we might add a few credit cards to our credit profile when we're in that mode, and that's going to bring down our overall age. So, it's good to have something to help balance it out, especially if you're one of those profiles that, you had decent credit and it was basically based on your student loans, because that's what brought the age to your profile. And now you've added all these credit cards. Well, your age is going to go down. So adding trade lines is a great way. Now, another way that you can actually add history organically to your credit profile is by adding your rent. And places like Rent Reporters and BoomPay.app, these are places that will report your rental payments, and they can backdate your payment history to up to 24 months. So they can actually add the last 24 months of payment history to your credit report. And if you don't pay electronically, you won't be able to add BoomPay because they're electronic. But if you have paid just maybe like other means to someone that's willing to report it, Rent Reporters is great, and I'll leave that link below as well, because with Rent Reporters, this is something that you're paying for every month, your rent, right? And if you've paid rent for the last 24 months, or if you have anyone that owns a home that, says you rent a room from them, and they can verify the payments. All that they have to do is literally click a button, say yes or no, and just verbally verify it. Then you can do that as well. But like I said, if you have paid rent from someone or to someone for the last 24 months, all that they would have to do is just verify with a click of a button or a verbal conversation that, hey, yes, this person has paid rent for the last 24 months. And every month they'll get a notification. Hey, did this person pay their rent? Yes or no? Yes. Okay, great. It'll be reported to the credit bureaus. And Rent Reporters actually reports your rental payments to TransUnion and to Equifax. So it's a great way to add payment history to your credit report. And like I said, with BoomPay, they do report to all three credit bureaus, Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion. However, you will need to do the payments electronically in order for Boom Pay to kind of pick it up. So each of these rental places have different standards. If you want to get our credit building book, I will leave a link below. We have a free ebook out there that offers some great ways and great trade lines, primary trade lines that you can apply for to start building credit and start establishing a stronger credit profile. Because, in one of our podcasts, we talk about, the mixture of accounts, and make sure to watch all of our podcasts because that's going to be a really important one. But again, today we're just talking about history. We're talking about age. We're talking about how important it is to actually have those aged accounts on your credit profile that are just showing, hey, I have 2 years of history with this account. All my payments have been made on time, right? Now, history doesn't account for your on-time payments, but it does account for how long you've had your accounts established. Because typically, if you've had your accounts established for 5 years, you're doing something right? And it goes off of average. So if you have 10 accounts open, 5 of them are brand new, but 5 of them are really old, then it's going to average that number out and spit out, what the average is. So it's based on the overall average number of accounts that are listed on your credit profile, no matter what type of account they are, whether they're a revolving type of account or they are an installment account. And if you don't know the difference, revolving accounts are typically like credit cards, Visa, MasterCard, American Express, Discover, and some sort of maybe store credit card. Then you also have your installment loans. And an installment loan is any sort of loan where you pay the same installment amount every single month until that account loan is paid off in full. These are most commonly known as like student loans, auto loans, mortgages, any sort of personal loan. And again, these credit types for installment don't count against your credit card utilization. They do count towards your debt to income. However, credit card utilization does not account for your installment balances due. So just keep that in mind, guys. And again, if you have found value in today's video, make sure to let us know. We need your support and love in this time of growth. This is a new podcast. So if you have enjoyed the Credit Concept podcast, let us know. Support at creditcoachpros.com. Give us a thumbs up. Follow us on the social media platforms and make sure that you have watched all of our podcasts because you just never know what type of information we're going to be dropping on you. My name is Credit Coach Nicole Scott. I am your host on the Credit Concept. Thank you so much for listening.